FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Welcome. You are listening to the Financial Survival Network. I'm Kerry Lutz. It's 7/9/19. Don't forget the contest. If you haven't heard about it yet, just send me an email. I will send you a link to enter. Maybe we'll even put it up on the site. The email address, kl@kerrylutz.com. We got to get your entry in no later than the 14th of July at 11:59 p.m. And grand prize, if we get up to 1,000 entries, will be 100 pre-1965 silver quarters. All you got to do is guess what the price of Bitcoin will be on July 20th on midnight and get closer than me, which is not too hard. Mine's 66.50. I don't get 2 guesses, neither do you. Email it kl@kerrylutz.com. Well, John Rubino is on with us now. Make sure you check out dollarcollapse.com as well as John's books, and sign up for his newsletter. It's timely and some of the best written material on the web. The good thing about you, John, is you don't compromise your grammatical instincts and your writing capabilities just to put stuff up on the web quickly, which is welcome, because high caliber writing on the web is really at a premium. Anyways, what do we got here, John? We've got, well, first, I guess we should talk about the deep state, what's going on here with Spygate and everything else. It looks like they might have been spying on Trump, you think?
Hey, Kerry. Oh, yeah. I think politics is the story this week, because the whole deep state thing, Russiagate always looked like it was going to boomerang on the Democrats. And now it's going to be, because once it was over, if it didn't take Trump down, he would have the Justice Department that is able to go back and look through the source material of the Russiagate investigation and find out if it's valid and how it was handled and who came up with it in the first place. And it turns out, or it's looking like, the original source material that started the whole thing was a document paid for by the Clinton campaign. They actually hired analysts, some of whom were apparently Russian, to dig up dirt on Trump. They compiled this document, then basically put it into the discussion, and the FBI took that as if it was an actual factual document rather than a political document, opposition research from one side against the other, and ran with it. And that's how Russiagate happened. And so now the Justice Department is going to go back through and untangle all the threads and find out who did what. And there's a decent chance that there are some very big names that are going to be implicated in this. And even if not, they're going to stretch this thing out until right before the election. They're not going to come up with anything right away. They're going to leak a little at a time and dribble information out and then save the bombshell for a week or two before the presidential election. So this is going to go on, and the people who are involved in it are going to lose a lot of sleep. And anybody who's involved in this campaign on the Democrat side has got to be wondering what it is the Justice Department is saving for right at the end of the campaign.
Hey, all I know is I would not want to be Jim Comey. I have a feeling that all these guys got immunity and they're not talking about it, that they were given immunity by Mueller. That was part of his job. And it's going to be like Clinton handing out pardons. It's going to be a complete outrage when they find out. But obviously, Christopher Steele, when have you ever seen him referred to in the news media as not being former spy, ex-spy, retired MI6 agent? And all I want to know is, hey, let me see his retirement papers. Let me see his pension checks. I don't believe this guy was ever retired, John. He was out there. He was the one who compiled the dossier. They paid him millions of dollars. Well, he got paid hundreds of thousands. Fusion GPS, which is founded by 3 ex-Wall Street Journal reporters, which makes me very suspicious, because I'm just suspicious by nature. They appear to have really left the Wall Street Journal, but was this connected in any way to Rupert Murdoch and to the Wall Street Journal who is purportedly pro-Trump, but I don't know. I'm suspicious of those guys. They've lied under oath. Glenn Simpson, who was the head of it, he lied. Evidently, they were a government contractor and had the ability to tap into the NSA database and do these queries on Trump associates, such as Carter Page, who evidently was an FBI asset. So how he became a Russian spy is beyond me. The guy Papadopoulos, he was actually on the show. He thinks that Carter Page might have been a plant in the campaign. So you got all these people being spied upon, but they were spied upon before the FISA warrants ever came out. They were just doing it. And then Admiral Rogers blew the whistle, and then they had to go get warrants to try to post hoc rationalize and legalize an illegal undertaking. So the point is, and I digressed a bit, they've been spying on everybody forever. They've been spying on Trump since he made noises to actually join the campaign and run for president. They've been spying on everyone. And Trump knows this, which is why he's kept his nose clean, I'll bet you, for at least the past 10 years, John. He's known he was going to run for president. That's my theory here.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next.
Trilogy Metals is a world-class developer in Alaska's Ambler mining district. The company already possesses 8 billion pounds of copper, 3 billion pounds of zinc, over 1 million gold-equivalent ounces, and now over 77 million pounds of cobalt. Trilogy's Arctic project boasts an after-tax net present value of $1.4 billion with a 33% IRR. Trilogy is led by an experienced management team with proven success in discovering and developing projects in Alaska. The company is well capitalized, has no debt, and possesses strong institutional support. Trilogy trades on the New York and Toronto exchanges under the ticker symbol TMQ. To learn more, go to trilogymetals.com. That's trilogymetals.com.
The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Well, remember how the mainstream media just ran wild with every little dribble of information that came out from the Mueller investigation. Mm-hmm. And they basically wasted 2 years, right? Because the only thing that we know about this is what is in the Mueller report that wasn't released for 2 years. So Rachel Maddow, kind of destroyed her credibility completely, and so did a big chunk of CNN and a lot of the rest of the mainstream media. So I think we have to avoid falling into that trap with this new thing, because they're not going to release anything that is definitive for a really long time. It's going to take a long time to run down who did what, when, and what they knew and who they talked to. So it's probably going to be a year or two before, I think it'll be right before the election before we get any kind of actual information that's verified. And the rest of it is going to be innuendo and rumor and an anonymous source said this. And we can waste a huge amount of time on this, or we can kick back and pay attention to the real things that can actually be verified, and then just wait for this to happen, because it is going to happen. Yes. And it's probably going to be big. Based on all the stuff you said right there, there are a lot of connections that will be made eventually and verified. And it'll look really bad for the deep state, for the mainstream media, et cetera, for the Democratic Party, probably.
They're all one and the same. They're all one and the same now. That's what we're coming to realize. He's lifted the veil on these people. The deep state, all of it, it's all the same.
Well, yeah, but we won't know anything for sure for a really long time. So we don't want to make the mistake that the mainstream media made with Russiagate, because we have a lot of other juicy stuff. Like this Epstein thing looks like it's going to be real.
I think it's honestly,
I think it's part of it. Real information and real names sooner, and that story is there's a billionaire financier and money manager who was friends with basically everybody and who apparently operated a party jet.
Yeah.
Where he would import underage girls for the rich, powerful guys to play with on his trips. And Trump apparently knew him back in the day. But as you were telling me before we went live, Trump banned him from Mar-a-Lago for this kind of activity.
I don't know exactly, but it appears that he was banned from there till I see the evidence. But supposedly it's in the court records and everything else. So we'll just have to see.
And then Bill Clinton was big time into all this.
26 times.
Yeah, he claims it's only 4 times. So that is going to come out. They'll find the actual number, and then we'll see what it is and what it means. But this is the kind of stuff that potentially contains bombshells.
Political dynamite.
Yeah, just because you don't know who is involved in this stuff, but you can, it's easy to picture lots of people involved in it. I kind of think Nancy Pelosi was not, though.
Yeah. She's kind of past that prime if she ever went into that nonsense. But if you look at the internet, what's on there? I mean, look, none of it. And look, I am always bemoaning the fact that nothing on the internet has any credibility until it's proven. One thing that is proven is the flight logs. There's a link to them on the web. I looked at them, and depending upon whom you talk to, this woman who's in charge of missing exploited some organization and a reporter, Conchita Sarnoff. I'd never heard of her till today. She's been on Epstein's trail since 2009, and she says that he was on there 27 times. Hillary was on there 6 times. The flight logs show Clinton being on there 26 times. So maybe that 27th time was really a special time for him, John,
Well, good for that lady, because it's not easy to be the only one on the trail of something big like that and have everybody. Yeah, I'm sure she was dismissed by an awful lot of people along the way, and now she gets her vindication, just like that guy who chased Bernie Madoff.
Yeah,
for 20 years,
Greek
and
guy.
finally everybody acknowledges that he was right and everybody else was wrong for all that time. So,
in the meantime, they were trying to kill him. He was worried that they were going to kill his family. What's his name? Mastropolis or something like that. Mastrianopoulos. I can't remember his name, but there's a movie on about him.
Markopoulos, like
right. Yeah. There's a movie about it. And evidently his life was in danger because Bernie had some unsavory, shall we say, associates. Well, I think that Epstein is tied into the deep state. We don't know for sure what the deal was, but it appears that his whole operation was one big honeypot, and politicians and everybody was there, and then they wound up getting potentially blackmailed for participating, and they broke into the guy's uptown mansion in Manhattan and found all sorts of pictures and stuff. He never stopped doing what he was doing when he got caught in the early 2000s. He never stopped. He was still doing the same game. So this is a predator that really, hey, it was up to me. If we still had a guillotine, honestly, the guillotine would be too good for him. But assuming he is guilty of what he's accused of, and look, he pleaded guilty once already, so it's not too big a stretch. This guy is a monster and really should be dispatched. I mean, he's just the quintessential, the essence of pure, unmitigated evil. I mean, this is evil, John. Preying on children is evil, and it doesn't get any lower, which is why even in the hierarchy of prisons, the child molesters get the worst treatment. You remember that guy, Jared something? He was the Subway spokesman for their campaign. He lost all the weight. His nickname in prison was Chomo. So, this is a sick world here.
I took a criminal justice course in college, and the prof said, if you're ever arrested for child molestation, hit the cop who arrests you, because then they'll put you in prison for assaulting an officer, and that's way better than the alternative.
Oh, so
anyhow, this stuff is all fun, but the economy is maybe a lot more interesting because the Fed meets. Is it this week or is it next week? Pretty soon.
I think it's next week, 19th.
Okay.
Because they met like June 19th. So
it seems like just lately.
Yeah, it's 10 days, I think, from now, or maybe I don't know. We'll check that out. We'll bring it back. So yeah, but that's hard to believe, the Fed's meeting already.
Yeah, but we had that monster earnings report, jobs report.
Yeah,
that turned out not to be that great, but the headline number was amazing, and the odds of a Fed rate cut did not change. They stayed 100% after that. So the Fed feels really pressured to cut rates.
Mm-hmm.
And meanwhile, you got Trump out there saying, I should have brought in Mario Draghi instead of Jerome Powell in the Fed. And I might fire him or I might demote him. They don't know what they're doing. You've never heard a president say stuff like this about the chairman of the Federal Reserve.
Yeah, well.
So now you've got testosterone involved here, right?
Yeah.
Instead of just numbers. The Fed is either going to cave or they're going to refuse to cut rates because they don't want to be perceived to be caving, or they might do something like raise rates just to, who knows now, because you got these big egotistical, powerful guys out there calling each other names in public. And that changes the dynamic, I think, which makes it even more complicated than it was before. So, if they don't cut rates, that could have a huge impact on the stock market, which is at all-time highs, and interest rates, which are coming up on all-time lows. But if they do the opposite, then you have also a big impact, but in the opposite direction. And it's hard to say what it's going to be now.
Yeah, I don't think I think they're committed to cutting. John, other guests have brought this up, and I'm gonna ask you, if we have the best economy that we've had in 50 years, or maybe even ever, and more jobs being created and businesses opening and everyone wants to do business in the U.S., why are we even thinking about a rate cut? Well,
yeah, that's what's so extraordinary about all of this. We're 10 years into a recovery. Stock market is at all-time highs. The official unemployment rate is pretty close to an all-time low. The last jobs number just rocked, at least the headline number. And there are lots of other things going on out there that point towards strength. Home prices are way up in a lot of places. They're not rolling over in any tangible way. And under normal circumstances, this would be a no-brainer for the Fed that you raise 50 basis points, right? Mm-hmm. And yet, everybody's pretty sure they're going to cut rates. So what does that mean? And I think what it means is that, under the surface, things are not nearly as good as these headline numbers like stock prices and bond yields and things like that kind of imply. Yeah. And I think that a big part of the problem is overseas. Europe is kind of rolling over. Germany's numbers especially are really weak. And China took on just insane amounts of debts, and now its banks are starting to falter, and they had to bail one out just lately, and some of the others are looking shaky. And
what about Deutsche Bank? They're laying off.
Deutsche Bank, the biggest German bank, basically imploded. They're going to cut 20,000 workers and go back to some little nub core business line, and get rid of a lot of the really flashy stuff that they've been doing. So the question on everybody's mind is Deutsche Bank a one-off thing, or is that Lehman Brothers? Is that the thing that tanks and then exposes a big chunk of the rest of the financial system as in almost as bad a shape? Mm-hmm. So it could be that the whole, we're going to cut interest rates thing is in response to stuff that they're seeing, but that most people don't see in the headlines. In other words, the big numbers that you see in the paper are still pretty good, but the trends and the numbers that underlie a lot of these headline numbers are much worse than they look. So, if so, hard to say what that means for record stock prices. Historically, when the economy rolls over, you get an equities bear market. Mm-hmm. But as Martin Armstrong says, where else do you go besides blue chip equities if bonds don't yield anything? Mm-hmm. And real estate is at record levels already. If you got to put money to work, you might as well put it into Google or something because nothing else looks even halfway as good, even at these prices. So I don't know. This is historically very spooky to me.
His wisdom here, I think, shows itself every day more and more, John. Don't you agree? I mean, the fact that no one can figure out why the stock market's going up, but Martin Armstrong. He's the only one that can figure out why it's going up and why it's going to continue going up. And look, whether you're a Martin Armstrong believer or not, the guy has been consistent I've been interviewing him since he obtained his freedom over 7 years ago. He's always said the same thing. Now, granted, he hasn't been right about how much the market's gone up to. He was saying 35,000, 42,000, etc. But it doesn't really matter. That's the thing. It's irrelevant who predicted what. how much.
Well, Kerry, he doesn't think it's done yet, though.
No, he said 35,000. Last time he said at least 35,000.
Yeah, that's what I mean. He doesn't think the bull run is over yet.
No, not by any stretch.
His dynamic, I think, if I'm understanding it correctly, is that the world starts to spin out of control. The dollar goes up as the only real safe haven currency.
And gold.
And that makes U.S. financial assets more valuable, including blue chip stocks, which, that's very easy to envision. I don't think it's the only scenario, but that certainly could happen. And maybe equities go way up from there. But God.
Yes. But he's been spot on. He's been spot on here. And,
Well, this is when it's good to be a young guy in the financial markets without having lived through a bunch of cycles already. Because, I've been around for 4 or 5 big cycles now. And so I just can't get with equities at these prices.
I know.
These valuation levels, I've seen it several times in the past. And I know what happened every time in those prior cycles. So I can't be optimistic about equities. But if you're 25 and this is your first cycle, it's easy to say, buy the dips, dude. Come on, it's going to 50,000,
Yeah. What can go wrong?
Well, the thing is, they're right. The guys like that are right in the final leg of a bubble, where people with some sense of history have backed off and said, "Oh no, this won't end well," and then you get that final doubling, right? That happened in late 1999 with tech stocks and early 2000. They were wildly overvalued, and they doubled again, and so this could be one of those times, especially if the Fed cuts interest rates aggressively from here. But I would have to sit it out because I just temperamentally can't. I wouldn't be able to sleep at night if I was long.
You know why that is, John?
Tech stocks in this market.
You know why you can't do it? Because I'm old.
Yeah, exactly.
Your tolerance for risk, just like mine, is not there. And yet, these young kids, man, they can do it because they don't know history, right? They're not teaching history on Wall Street anymore, are they?
Well,
if they ever were.
For the youngest generation, no. And I think the veterans in the investment community know how to use that process, where they towards the end of a cycle will jump on board with some young hot money managers who don't feel a bit of fear and are all about optimism and the next doubling and everything, and they ride that for a while. Yeah. But of course, that's incredibly dangerous because when a cycle turns, you tend to get a crash. Not a stair-step pattern down that lasts 3 or 4 years. You tend to drop 40 or 50% in 3 or 4 months. And it's not easy to get out of something like that. So that's the risk that you take by trying for the final doubling in a bubble market. If you time it right, you get a doubling, and if you don't time it right, you lose 60% of your capital. So it's a question of whether you can stomach that risk and how big psychologically that risk is for you. For a 25-year-old, it's minuscule. It's highly unlikely, therefore why worry about it? And for somebody who's seen that happen 3 or 4 times, it's a 90% probability, So why bother trying for a little more of a gain right at the end when that big crash is looming out there? So,
I just think
interesting times. And, markets just humble you. They never really give you a direct answer to questions like this. You just have to roll the dice either way.
Definitely not. I just remember what Bernard Baruch said. I got rich letting the other guy make the last 10%.
Yeah, exactly.
Isn't that the truth, boy? I mean,
it's
really.
It's psychologically hard to give up that what seems like easy money at the end of a cycle. But you have to do that if you want to have capital at the bottom of the next cycle. Because otherwise it'll evaporate on the way down.
That is the truth, I'm afraid. And so we've got lots of interesting stuff ahead of us here. It's all going to be dribbled out. It's going to be very dramatic at times and boring at others. But it's like I was watching a Terminator marathon over the weekend. The humans have the machines on the run, and now they just got to win the final battle. And I feel like that's where we're at with what we're going through now, for sure. It's like the final battle of the deep state to retain power and run the show. And it's about time that this nonsense was dealt with and we got rid of it.
Oh, Kerry, I doubt the battle will ever be over. It's human nature to accumulate power.
Yeah, I know.
And then to misuse it, and then there's a battle that might be coming, and some of the names will end up changing and a few laws will change. But people in charge misusing power is going to be with us forever. That's a continuous battle that the human race has to fight, and it will never end, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I'm afraid you're right. But for the first time in our lives, the deep state is on the run. They're on the defensive, and that's significant.
Mm-hmm.
That is a big deal.
That's why this will be so much fun to watch. But I worry that the resolution will maybe look good, but it won't really be good. And our kids will have to fight the same fight 10 or 20 years from now.
Yes, for sure. It's never
on that
ending.
Optimistic note.
Yeah, on that optimistic note, I guess we should go. But check out John's site. It's dollarcollapse.com. Check out our site, Financial Survival Network. Till next week, John, we will pick up where we're left off.
Thanks, Gary. See ya.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.